Hello, everybody. I am with the mayor of the city of St. Louis, Mayor Cara Spencer. We're going to talk about the city's weather emergency, how it's impacting the homeless and people in need, and what the city is doing to try to prepare for it and to try to help people. And let's look at the mayor. Hello, Mayor. How are you?
I'm okay, Elliot. How are you?
All right. It's been a while. How are you today, first of all?
I'm good. I'm inside. We have a very unconventionally cold set of weeks here.
And that's what I was going to ask you. What is the city doing to help the homeless and others in similarly situated deal with this weather emergency? There are tornado victims, for example, who don't have a place to stay right now. What's the city's plan?
Well, the city has taken pretty unprecedented steps this year to address our most vulnerable residents, those without housing or with very badly compromised housing. Right now what we're experiencing here with this extreme cold is extremely unusual this early in the game. So, typically speaking, homeless services are not usually available until the 1st of December, but we moved things as quickly as possible to get them ready last week. So a few things that we're doing. One, we've allocated a very serious amount and significant amount of funding.
How much?
Well,
funding.
We for all things said and done, for the winter planning, just about $13 million that came from a surplus last year, as well as interest funds from the RAM settlement fund. And so those are going into several different things, Elliot. One of which is the congregate shelter space. So we're making sure that we have beds available. As I mentioned before, typically you don't see beds available before December 1st, those winter beds, but we stood those up last week. We had a couple hundred. We were getting at capacity, so I believe tonight we should have somewhere around 300. We're adding more every day as the winter weather ticks on. We've also got something new this year, and that is shelter transportation. So we set up shuttles that are going from checkpoints across the city, as well as from shelter to shelter as we are reaching capacity. Those have been very effective at moving folks into shelter space as they were available. There were some misnomers over the weekend that we were full. There was some misinformation about some of that. People were showing up and we were able to shuttle them into some of the other shelter spaces that were available. This is an unprecedented winter. We have more folks that are experiencing homelessness nationwide than we saw last year. That's true for St. Louis as well. And as you mentioned, we have so many families that are staying within their homes, but they're so badly damaged they're unable to retain heat. So in addition to having those services for the unhoused, we're also standing up a couple of other programs. One is a rental assistance program, and that is primarily for families and for folks in the tornado zone that are not unhoused but are in a house that hasn't been able to be repaired yet. And those programs will be coming online in the next week or two. We weren't expecting to have this level of winter weather this early on. As you may know, and your viewers may know, it's really unusual to get snow before Christmas.
Of course, we've been talking about this a long time.
The winter planning?
Yeah, we've been asking questions about this probably
right, Elliot,
before spring or something.
With the tornado, we have been standing program after program after program up. We are really holding the body of work that in most cities historically FEMA has taken on. And so we are really inventing programs as we go. And it's a big lift to be able to do, especially with tax dollars that carry with them a lot of requirements. And we are being very judicious in making sure that we're spending those dollars well. But look, we knew we were having winter weather coming in early, and so we activated as quickly as possible, and we got quite a few hundred beds lined up. I was personally able to visit a couple of shelters over the weekend. They were doing a truly phenomenal job. They were very well run, and I'm very proud of the work that the provider community has been able to pull together with the help of the city, but certainly just an enormous effort to make sure that we have housing available. And it's not just housing. I mean, you can come in, we're getting meals, that transportation I mentioned before, but in many cases we're able to connect folks to other resources. We're going to make sure that some of those programs that we have for rental assistance and other things, that information will be available to folks who are seeking shelter.
I've been at the homeless tent encampment on 10th and Cass often. They're saying they're not seeing enough from the city. I mean, blankets and coats, everything. At the very least, they need to see representatives from the city come over and check with them. 45 people over there. Have you guys done enough to help those guys in that encampment? Yes.
I can't speak to the specific needs of every person there, but what I can say is that we do continue to have shelter space available, and those shelter spaces do have blankets and other things and meals, etc. So it's really tough to be able to address the needs of every single member of the unhoused community. So we're really trying to centralize those resources by funneling them through those shelter spaces.
Should you have a warm-up bus over there, since you have so many homeless people in that one location? Would that be a good place to have a warm-up bus?
Well, we are looking into that. Elliot, we have 3 shuttles that were donated this year at my request by State. They've been very generous in making sure that we have those 3 shuttles. Our city departments made them operable. They did that exceptionally quickly given the early onset of winter here. And so those shuttles are, rather than being just stationary warming positions, they're really kind of roaming around and making sure that we're transporting people. And we're looking to set up some warming buses as well. So we'll be looking into that. It's important to us that the folks at that particular encampment have access to resources. But for a city that has never really been this active in serving the unhoused, we're doing quite a bit. And I have to give a tremendous amount of credit to Julian Nix and Dr. Pearson, who've really worked extremely hard to be able to stand these shelters up so early in the game this year. And those additional resources like the transportation, etc. We know it's not addressing every single need, and as we move through the coming weeks, we're going to be pulling more and more resources online.
Now, one of the things that I've been talking about recently, along with Larry Rice, is St. Louis County. And a lot of the residents, homeless people from St. Louis County, are coming down to the city. St. Louis County is not doing its share.
Gosh, Elliot, I will tell you anecdotally, and I talked to quite a few folks over the weekend who are experiencing homelessness, and we're very grateful to be taking advantage of the resources that the city was able to, that the community together, we were all collectively able to stand up. And many of those folks were not native St. Louis city residents. Some of them came from all over the United States, but they were certainly from around the region as well.
From St. Louis County, places like that.
There were folks from all over, I will say that. And it is frustrating. We have, in the city, we do carry the lion's share of the region's lower income residents, and we carry the bulk of the unhoused community. And as you well know, and by talking about these figures that we're spending, it's an extremely expensive service to be able to provide. It's the right thing to do. There's no doubt about it.
Why aren't you getting more help from St. Louis County, St. Charles County, the east side? Why are those areas falling down on the job essentially and leaving the whole load on the city?
As we stand up the response...
You want Sam Page to do more, don't you?
I want the region to do more, and I am grateful that East-West Gateway is holding the conversation about the regional response to homelessness. I think that's a really important body of work that the East-West Gateway community of governments, council of governments, is holding. I'm also encouraged by House Everyone STL and some of the work that the philanthropic and the private sector are funding. And as we get through this winter with a more a proactive approach to serving the unhoused, we'll have a better roadmap for what needs to happen regionally to be able to address this issue. But in the same way, I mean, this is a question that how we are going to move forward when the federal government is really pulling back funding is going to be a very, very difficult task in the years ahead. And we do need to handle this regionally. This is not just a city issue. It does happen to be where the majority of the resources are, but we can't shoulder this financial burden alone. I'm glad you realized that, Elliot, and I am really grateful for your advocacy demanding that we serve the members of our unhoused community better. But when the financial burden falls squarely and almost exclusively on the shoulders of a city that already carries a high level of poverty and a huge burden of city services, it becomes extraordinarily difficult to be able to deliver. We are asking so much of our city workforce, and we are getting quite a bit out of them. But at the end of the day, our resources are finite, and we do need regional support, philanthropy, and some corporate investment to be able to effectively address this issue.
Are you saying the Trump administration is not doing enough?
What I'm saying right now is that we need to come together to effectively address homelessness.